Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the January 2017 edition of the Marks Group GoldMine Tips and Tricks webinar. We put on these tips and tricks webinars once a month. You can always head on over to marksgroup.net to see our CRM blog from ages past. Let me see if I have my hotkeys all straightened out here today. I've been fighting with them all week. Okay, so today we're going to be looking at a few different things. What are we talking about today? We're going to be talking about identifying bad data. This is something that we honestly do a lot of during the holiday season. I thought I would share some of the techniques that we use with you fine folks, how to identify bad data, and then of course how to fix the bad data once we have it identified and isolated. Good stuff. We're going to be talking about securing pick lists, because fixing that bad data has absolutely no meaning whatsoever unless we can stop bad data from being put into the system. So we're going to look at how to identify and secure pick lists. Good stuff. And if we have some time, we're going to all look at displaying some summary counts, one of the best kept secrets in GoldMine. We have a lot to talk about today. Let's go ahead and jump right in with identifying bad data. Let's see if I can't do this. Hey, look at that. Okay, so we're going to identify some bad data. What is the bad data I'm talking about? Well, here is the typical issue. In this case, we're going to be talking about the customer type field here, which ordinarily stores values like customer, prospect, vendor, disqualified, what have you. And to be honest with you, I don't see this field used really effectively a lot in the field. So in this case, this contact record, I can see it has the customer type of pros. I can probably guess they really mean prospect. Well, let's click into the pick list and see what kind of choices we have available. We have customer, dead, disqualify, and prospect. Well, the first thing we want to do is figure out what's in this field. What are all of the unique values in my customer type field? This is actually quite easy to do. It's a little hard to learn, but very easy to repeat in the future. So what you're all going to want to do is go to your SQL Query Center in GoldMine. This is, again, one of the best kept secrets in GoldMine. So it's going to be under Tools and down to SQL Query. And what we're actually going to do is we're going to run a unique list and a series of counts for that customer type field. Now, the first thing that we have to understand is database or GoldMine geeks is what is the back end field name of that field. Well, it says customer type, but that's actually not the field name. So if I right click on the field label, not on the value, well, I guess the value works too. Didn't used to. I digress. If I right click on the field label and go to properties, I can see that the actual database name of that field is the key 1 field. Those of you who have been around GoldMine a long time will know about keys 1 through 5. They were actually originally designed to be the only indexed fields in GoldMine. Not so much anymore. Of course, hard disk space is cheap and computers are fast, so indexed fields don't really matter too much anymore. But just to suffice to say that when we're looking at this customer type field, if I right click and hit properties, the field name I'm actually trying to deal with is the key 1 field. Now this is important because when I go into my SQL query window here, key 1 is the field name I'd like to use. So again, the idea is to generate a unique list of everything in that key 1 field. This is actually pretty easy to do, and this code is available up on our marksgroup.net website. So we want to select key 1 and the count from contact 1. Contact 1 just happens to be the table that we're selecting from. This is pretty normal vanilla SQL query stuff going on here. So I want to select my customer type and the count of that customer type from my table. Take my word for it, it's contact 1. And then we want to group it by key 1. Now when I query that, what that's going to do is give me a nice concise list. Well, maybe not concise in your example. Try it at home. You can't hurt anything by selecting data. But what I see here is all of the unique values in my customer type field. So I have some pros or prospects, looks like it should be. I have a misspelled customer here and a misspelled customer here. I have a disqualify here, and I have actually 2 blanks. What the hell's going on with that? Well, one of those blanks is actually called a no. Functionally, they are both blank. So rows 1 and 2 are functionally both blank customer types in GoldMine. The reason why we see 2 rows in the SQL query window is because one value is blank, which means that a value has been clicked into there and has subsequently been removed. So a customer type was added at some point and then blanked out. The other row is actually null, which is less than a blank. When we talk about null in an SQL database, that means actually that row has never been written to ever. So in this case, I have probably 4 contacts which have just never had a customer type ever, and I have 3 customers which probably had customer types at one point and then was blanked out. I don't want to get too caught up on the technical splitting hairs between null and blank. I just wanted to show you guys this is why you're going to see 2 blank rows in your SQL query results. When using the SQL query window, never forget, never surrender. We can always right click and output to Excel. Really handy. So anything that you see in this list here, we can right click output to Excel. Very handy because the world does run on Excel after all. Okay, so the idea is to then get our query, which we can save for easy reuse. Let's go ahead and do that. We'll click the save button, and I'm going to call this my customer type list. Just like that. And because no query exists with this name, I can save as a new query. That's the only option that I have. Once that query's into the system, I can drop that down and select it from my handy dandy combo box there. Good stuff. So again, this is going to help us identify bad data. This is usually the first thing that we'll do in the field when requested to clean up a database. We'll get a sense on the unique values. Now, we could generate the same list off of virtually any field here on the top. Like in this case, let's look at account manager. So what is the field name for account manager? Let's right click, go to properties. That's actually the key 4 field. So I can run the same list for key 4, easy peasy. Back into my query, change key 1 to key 4. On both sides, we want to select key 4, and we also want to group by key 4. Don't forget that. And we query that out. And all of my account managers in my database happen to be 9 are unknown, 3 are blank or null. We can save this query as a brand new query. Now, when you are working with a query that you already have defined, already been screwing with, when you go to save it again, the default is to update the current query. So I've had a lot of people actually blank out hard worked on queries by just hitting OK here. So I want to save as a new query just to be entirely sure. And this is going to be our account manager list, just to show you how easy it is. Could we do state if we wanted to see if there's any malformed states in the database? You bet we can. Change that key 4 to state, from city state zip, and there we are, so on and so forth. Could we even do it on company? We could. Probably not the most useful thing to see, but we could get a unique list of companies out of our database. Thusly, this is a nice way to see maybe if you have like a big account, like this Acme Incorporated with 3 records, if one of those records was misspelled, or maybe Acme Incorporated needs a period and 2 are missing that. You'll see that here. You'll catch that. So now I have 1 Acme Inc. with a period and 1 Acme Inc. without a period. So this is the way the unique list query can help you catch quote-unquote bad data. Not really applicable to things like company, maybe state, certainly not address, but things like customer type and account rep, things like that, very appropriate for. So now that we have an idea of how damaged or how dirty our database is, let's go back here to our customer type list and query that. How do we start fixing our data? For example, how do we get this PROS to read prospect in our database. So the way we're going to do this now, this isn't the most efficient way. I mean, if you had access to the SQL Server and if you knew SQL update queries, you could do all of these at once. That's something that we could do for you. But the GoldMine way is to actually create a filter and run a global replace. So the order of operation would be, for each bad value that we find here, we're going to, in this case, we're going to create a filter that will give me everyone with PROS is a customer type. That's going to be a filter in GoldMine. And then we're going to globally update against that filter to change that PROS to prospect. It sounds terrible. It's actually not. And this is also a great way to learn how to use filters within our search center, which is really the best way to do it nowadays. So the idea is to filter out these pros, these prospects. How do we do that? If I want to start searching from any field on the contact record, the easiest shortcut that I know is to double click on the field label. So if I want to search by customer type, I double click on the words customer type. That brings up my search center, and I'm already searching by customer type. So in this case, my customer type is going to begin with PROS. Now, this is dangerous. So let's make a test record with a proper prospect value here. So I want to show you that this can be a little dicey. So when I look at my search center, so because I'm looking at begins with PROS, I'm not only getting the two quote-unquote bad records, but I'm also going to get this one good record because prospect begins with PROS. So what we probably want to do is say, instead of begins with, say equal to. So that's a hard equal to. So it's only going to grab the PROS. So that begins with crap right out the window. Okay, so now we have our two damaged records that we want to convert to prospects, or we just want to globally update. So what we're going to want to do here is, now that we've searched them out in our search center, we're going to make them a filter. This is like the easiest thing ever. You're going to be amazed that this was here the whole time. Click save, save as filter. I wonder if you guys can see that when I click on it. I'm going to call this my prospect fixer. Very good. And I get this index issue once in a while. I'm not sure why that is. I can't leave my GoldMine alone. But let's be honest. Can you? I didn't think so. Okay, so now that we have our filter, well, where did it go? I saved the filter. Where did it go? If I click on my filters groups button here, this is going to reveal my filters and groups for my currently logged in user. And if I expand filters here, there's my prospect fixer. Now that filter is defined in the system, and I saved that filter just by performing a search in GoldMine. This is actually one of the best kept secrets about the new GoldMine, is you no longer have to screw around with this filters tab. Anyone been here before? Anyone have screaming nightmares nightly, waking up in cold sweats about how terrible this thing is? If not, God bless your hearts. Otherwise, it's a terrible thing that needs to be burned with fire. At any rate, saving filters from the search center is a much better way to do it. Now that we have a filter, what do we do? How do we globally replace these people? Who are these people? We're going to want to get into our tools, data management, and global replace. Get out of here, index issue. Okay, and because I don't play with this a lot, I get this alert. You guys seen these alerts before. We're experts, so I'm going to say don't show me ever again. Thank you very much. Okay, the global replace wizard is as dangerous as you might imagine, so I would highly recommend, before playing with this little guy here, back up your database. If you don't know how to back up your database, ask your IT guy to back up the database. If you don't have an IT guy, give me a call. We'll back up that database. You bet. You want to make sure to back up that database, because if you happen to run this global replace against, say, I don't know, the entire database, everyone's going to become a prospect. Not good. So, the global replace wizard. Why is everything a wizard? I don't understand it. We're simply going to want to replace a field with a value. Of course, there are advanced tools that we can play with down here. That is for another day. I want to replace a field with a value. What field? my contact type. Now you're going to see all the fields like in the universe in here. To cycle through all the C's, because I'm looking for customer type, I'm going to just click on my C button here. That's a nice little shortcut. Any Windows list will do that for you. So customer type, I want that to be set to prospect. Because again, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to fix these bad prospect records. Now, to whom, and then we're going to go ahead and click next here, but now it needs to know to whom shall I perform this update. Now, pay close attention here. It defaults, or it falls back to all contact records. This has been one of the burning issues about GoldMine for like the last 15 years. It has always been this way, so just be very mindful. Any kind of global replace should really kind of only be done by administrative staff, should only be done after a database backup, and should be very, very carefully double checked before you commit it. So in this case, I don't want to do it to everyone. I want to do it to just my prospects. Remember that prospect fixer filter. So I only want to make that update to those folks. All right, next, and finish. And okay, what's happening? I know something's probably happening. I know because my GoldMine process monitor kind of rears its ugly little head down here. We can just float over that to see what's going on here. I'm a process monitor guy. So what I like to do actually here is to right click on my process monitor top edge and select show as MDI window. And what that does for me is that forces my process monitor to become a top level tab. I find that a lot easier to deal with than this little floaty thing down there. But within our process monitor, we can see that 2 records were indeed replaced. And if we go back to our records, we can see pros has now become prospect for good old Douglas Adams. And I believe the other one was, who were they? And then for Justin Hill, prospect as well. So what we'd actually end up doing is rinsing and repeating. Now when we run our customer type list again, because prospect has been fixed, those results appear in the list properly now. That's the other nice thing about having these SQL queries hanging around, is that as you fix the database, you rerun these SQL queries, they become cleaner and cleaner and cleaner, and you just feel good about all the work you've been doing. So let's just run this one more time. We're going to run a fix on customer. Ooh, that's ugly. We have 2 different spellings of customer. How does that happen? Well, let's take it one step at a time. We want to make a filter. So we're going to go to our search center here. And we're going to look at customer type. We'll say begins with C. CU. We only have one of them. And begins with C, grabs both of them. Can we get even fancier? Can we say contains OMER, right? So that might be a better way to grab our list. Because no one in my organization seems to be able to spell the word customer. They are, however, able to do the OMER at the end, and that's something we can latch onto as a search value. And we're going to do that using this contains operator here. Never forget, there's a lot of cool stuff in here, all kinds of different operators to play with. So this is going to grab my bad people out of the database. I want to save them as a filter, and I'm going to call these guys my customer fixer. And there we go. And now we're going to run our global replace. Let's get this out of here. Get out of here. Back to tools, back to management, back to global replace. Replace a field with a value. Replace the field what? What field? Customer type. There it is. With the value of what? Customer. Spelled correctly. Which people? All people? No! We'd love all people to be customers, but no! This will screw up so bad. We'll go ahead and select customer fixer from our list of people to fix. Next, and finish. Where's my process monitor? There it is. It's run. 2 records were replaced. Let's go back to our filters and groups. And we rerun our query, and then we have customer here, spelled correctly, only 2 records. So this is essentially how your average bear would fix quote unquote bad values in their GoldMine database. Because really, what is the sense of having a customer field if there's garbage in it? Like, you could have some customers, you could have client or customer or prospect or suspect or dead or disqualified. And again, a lot of that comes back to the fact that having a good plan, and more to the point, having a plan that everyone understands is paramount to good data integrity. Having the customer type field does us no good if people don't know what to put in there. Which brings us to our next topic. Can I do the thing? Oh, I can do the thing. Hooray. Okay, so we're going to talk about securing pick lists. So again, having a customer type field does us no good if the end user doesn't know what to put in here. How would they know what to put in here? Well, they're going to click into that pick list. One of the nicest things about GoldMine is that every field does have a pick list associated with it. If I click in here and click the gray arrow, that's going to bring up my pick list. So these are all of the items, all of the valid items in my customer type pick list. So I have customer, dead, disqualify, or prospect. So let's go ahead and, well, okay, so that's good. The list seems to be pretty good. However, how did those misspelled customers get in there? So if I'm just going to type in a value, can I do that? Oh my God. How is that possible? How is that even possible? Now, what we really want to do in this instance is, because customer type is only going to have a certain set of valid values, customer, prospect, disqualified, dead, what have you. We want to lock it down a little bit. So we want to prevent this kind of crap from going on. So what we want to do is click in here, bring up our pick list, and the idea is then to lock this pick list down. How do we do that? We're going to go to our setup button here. Lots of stuff to play with here, lots of sharp tools to play with here. So my advice to you would be to, when starting to play with locking down pick lists and stuff like that, work with one pick list at a time, because if you run into issues, you could be trying to unravel, a ball of Christmas lights, trying to figure out what change you made screwed everything up. So make one change at a time. Test thoroughly. That way, less headaches, more sleep at night. Okay, so what I actually want to do here is force a valid input. And I also want to either allow or disallow a blank input. But what I really want to do is force a valid, because what that does now, when I try to click away from that field with my misspelled customer word in there, it's saying, it pops it up again. It says, hey pal, you got to pick one of these. Well, in this case, okay, it wants to be customer. Did you guys know this? In the pick list, if you have 2 slashes and then some text, anything including the 2 slashes is ignored. So I can see here my customer is actually an active customer, but it only inserts the stuff before the double slashes. And you can do that in any pick list, by the way. So I can make them dead, or how morbid, or disqualified, or whatever. Now, because we're now forcing the end user to use a valid customer type, it's ultra super important that we have every valid customer type in this list. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen clients of ours lock down, say, the customer type pick list, but then fail to put in all of the appropriate values. So what you have is end users trying to just get off this record, trying to do something else in GoldMine, and they can't, because the valid item isn't in here. They can't pick what they want, so they end up just picking anything just to get out of this box, and that will start up screwing up your GoldMine data. Again, we're going to find ourselves here next January doing the same cleanup. So do yourself a favor. Assess all of your pick lists. If you're going to lock them down, if you're going to, again, go to setup and force a valid input, make sure all of the valid inputs are available. It might sound stupid, but man, it is so very important. Okay. We are just about burning it up today, so let's go ahead and just look at one more little thing, a little stupid pet trick, if you will. When I'm in my search center, searching with the intent of making up these filters for my people to fix, a nice trick is to go in here and right click and select summary. That will allow you to see a count of how many people are in this list. And I can actually right click and select a summary for any list in GoldMine. I can do it Here in my history tab, I right click, go to summary. I can do it in my pending tab, again, right click and summary. The most popular area, however, certainly is the contact search center. People always want to know, well, if I'm searching for somebody in the database, how do I know how many people there are? Well, in this case, there happens to be 2. I am working on that bigger test database, guys. Just bear with me. I'm just trying to get some real names in there. So again, working with the contact search center, having those summary values available to you can be really, really handy. We are just about out of time, so let me go ahead and see if I can't get back to my... Oh, I'm getting a hang on those, baby. You bet it. You betcha. All right, so I'm always looking for the next batch of tips and tricks, so please feel free to reach out to me at justin@marksgroup.net. Otherwise, thanks so much for showing up, and have a lovely day.